Okay, basically, Stadia is a bit screwed. Now, that's not exactly Stadia the service, that is Stadia being a bit screwed in comparison to other entrants to the market, namely Microsoft Project xCloud. xCloud is not actually fully released as a product, however, the beta access does exist, we have played it, and even though it was not under optimal conditions, it absolutely blew the socks off Stadia as an overall product, that consumers would actually use, instead of just a nifty tech demo. So today we're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about how Stadia basically has, in my view, it does not have a snowball's chance in hell as compared to the overall experience offered by xCloud. Now, there are a few caveats with xCloud, like the app is really not that great. So there's a bunch of quirks there that aren't really that good to use. That said, it is a beta, and unlike the, what's going on with Stadia, it's not a beta that I'm being charged a, £120 Founder Edition in order to play. Now, there are some core differences between these two product offerings, like Stadia is saying that they'll be running things at 4K 60. As we said, not really. Some games are just, Destiny, right? That's 1080p medium at, okay, yeah, they're streaming it out at 4K. It looks fine, but the actual game quality is really not that good. And yes, 60 FPS is really nice, but still, you've got input lag, so that still is an issue to deal with. Now, there are some games like the Tomb Raider ones that do fare a bit better on Stadia, but the point there is basically, yeah, it's got its big 4K 60 claim with HDR, and right now, that's not something that xCloud seems to be offering. xCloud seems to be more of a 1080-30 or 1080-60 experience, depending on the games. Now, that said, you're streaming video games. I've got to be real here. 4K 60, you want 60 FPS, but 4K streamed video games, I don't really see the point too much, being completely honest with you. Yeah, the more the merrier, that is fine, but you're losing so much quality to the encode and things like that, and basically, I think in most situations, like 1080p or 1440 basically do the job. Now, in terms of other differences between these product offerings, with Stadia, it's so bad. You've got to buy the full games on Stadia, right? And ideally, if you want to actually have a good quality version of the games you've bought, you've got to have Stadia Pro for that 4K 60 experience. Now, when you go over to xCloud, it's really entirely different. Like, yeah, you get in, right? You're going to end up just with the Game Pass Ultimate. But the thing there is you're getting the Game Pass library. And that is more games than Stadia has available to purchase. You just get bundled in, the subscription you're going to have anyway. And that means that xCloud is just a far better value proposition. It does a far better job of just, you hit the button, you choose a game from a library of games, you click one, you play it, there you go. Whereas on Stadia, yeah, their loading times are super fast, their game switching experience is super slick, and I'm sure their technology backend is really cool. But at the end of the day, it's actually more expensive. It is worse as a product as compared to xCloud. Now, you're probably thinking, well, does Stadia not have some industry-leading, latency and performance and things like that? And, not particularly. The input lag, it is comparable, but there are key differences that are important and are in the favor of xCloud. So, here is our experience now. In our Stadia testing, we were doing it on our worst case scenario was a floor down from the Nighthawk X10 router, and we were getting, honestly, abysmal performance. Now, we, in the same location, used an old Android phone, right? Because it's only available on Android right now for the beta. That seems to be what they're testing right now. So, that's a part of the service that's just not comparable right now. But we were doing that on this Android phone that, old, not a great Wi-Fi chip, a phone that is barely even holding together, being real with you, and we had a better experience that was actually more stable. And that actually leads me on to another very interesting thing, and that is tolerances. So whenever Stadia seems to lose its throughput, you get hitching on your stream. However, with xCloud, it actually seems to be far more, aligned with the actual game playing experience. We found that it really would sacrifice its streaming quality, but in order to actually maintain a responsive experience. Now, that said, in both cases, it's still streaming video games. It is severely limited as a thing because you do have input lag. Now, on the topic of input lag, it basically was similar between the two of them. The only real difference is that xCloud, in our experience, was performing better at lower amounts of bandwidth. So on a 30 connection, we were finding that xCloud was clobbering Stadia. And then, as an interesting thing, Matt, who works on the channel, he then took that all home, right, to his 200 down connection, and he started playing Darksiders. Now, that's fine. He was playing Darksiders, it was all going really well. Then, at the same time, he downloaded Darksiders because, of course, it was on Games Pass, which is another really good benefit of that as an overall service. He downloaded that on his PC, which almost maxed out his internet connection of 200 down, and still found that his xCloud experience, while it did have diminished performance, was essentially playable. Now, that said, it still is game streaming, and in the experience of everyone on our team, none of us believe that Stadia or xCloud are offering you an optimal gaming experience. But what we will say is that xCloud was generally beating Stadia and seemed to be a lot less finicky when it came to using the resources that you were throwing at it. And that was a really big plus there. And then whenever problems actually did start to bubble up, xCloud just seemed to be able to handle it better. Now, I do find that very interesting because everyone's been thinking, oh, Google. I mean, data centers, Google, they clearly are going to be massive leaders there. Well, you know what? Microsoft have Azure, and seemingly Azure is just as good, if not better, than what Google are doing. I mean, sure, there are some unique parts to Google's overall product offering and what their technology can do and is purported to be able to do and will be able to do in the future. However, what I would say is none of it really matters that much to gamers, right? And I mean, the reason why I bring that in is you look at Stadia and you're like, who the hell is this for? How does this make sense as a product offering? Because you're trying to sell this as a real budget experience because, can't afford a console, but hey, I can do Stadia. I can play on any screen. All my games all my games where I want to play them. That's roughly what their marketing line is, even though they've only got 22 games on the service, which is pretty darn embarrassing. But if you look at, say, the xCloud experience, I mean, that's just get Games Pass Ultimate, costs whatever a month. You get a far larger library of games, and seemingly you'll end up with as good, if not better, of an experience. So to actual core gamers, I mean, yeah, Microsoft are far more in alignment with what the actual gamers' priorities will be. Over at Google, it seems like they've really focused on their technology and some, aspects of their user experience. You know what? That's all good. That's all fair enough. But at the end of the day, people get one of these services to play video games, and that is the most important thing. And as an overall product, I mean, it's not even close because of the access to that game library. So basically, even if their latency problems were the exact same, and even if when the connection was getting disrupted, like xCloud was to have Stadia-like performance hitches, even if that was the case, xCloud would still absolutely clobber it as a product that a consumer would like to purchase in order to use, or I suppose a service in this case. And it's really for that reason that, yeah, this video had pretty bombastic, thumbnail, pretty bombastic title. That's because I do believe that. I really do think that Google have came in. Frankly, I think they've came into a market that they barely understand, where they're not particularly welcome. They have not thought about the core of what that main market actually wants from a product. And they seemingly have just went off hubris alone. I mean, if you just look at any of the Stadia, just their marketing in general I think it's pretty darn tone deaf to the actual gaming audience, where they're really treating this like a technology, minimum viable product for, those early adopters, founders, as they're calling them, where, I mean, it is just this big paid beta. Whereas over here in, xCloud land, things are just far better. It is far more a product for people who enjoy video games. And there's also other benefits here because of the tie into Game Pass. So here's the thing. If I purchase a game, and I do that in Stadia, I'm really in a bad spot there because I own this game on one of the worst platforms to own games from a user experience perspective. Because whether it's Stadia or whether it's xCloud, if you're playing an FPS, frankly, I don't think it's that great because you do have a bit of input lag. Now, if it's Assassin's Creed Odyssey, you'll do just fine, but you get my point. Now, if you buy your game there on Stadia, that's it. It's just on Stadia. You're a bit screwed, aren't you? Whereas if you have a game through Game Pass, well, you've got it on xCloud. You can then download it to your Xbox One, your Xbox One S, your Project Scarlet, your gaming PC. There's so much more flexibility in that product offering, and it actually means if you just want to fire up a game on the streaming version before you download it, you can do that. You can experiment a lot more with games. And really, I think that is it. From the actual human who is going to be using the service, xCloud wins, Stadia is just naff. And Stadia, I mean, you've got all the other problems, the overheating Chromecasts, the fact that it basically is a paid beta that kind of sucks. You've got all that scummy stuff, Google basically lying about quality and just being completely deluded. And you go over to Camp Microsoft, and this is not to seem like a Microsoft fanboy here, I just genuinely do think Microsoft, they want gamer money, and they're doing a better job of getting that money because they're offering a quality service, unlike Google. But Microsoft just seem to understand and seem to have got a product a lot more aligned with the core user's interest. And I think on this channel, yeah, we're, I'm a core gamer. If you were to put me in a demographic, I think most of you are as well. So, at least for us, it does seem like xCloud is offering really offering what's going to be good for us. As for Stadia, I mean, I just don't know who it's for. I mean, if you have a financial issue that's preventing you from getting a games console, I don't think Stadia is a great option because you then have to deal with the price of games. And if you want the decent quality version, then, well, you're just going to have to pay more money for that for Stadia Pro. And it's like Stadia Pro's got a good game offering, unlike xCloud. I mean, if you're going to be putting in a Stadia Pro-like quantity of money into video games, and that's all you can put into video games, and you can't get any hardware, xCloud's going to give you a whole bunch of games, unlike Stadia. So, I mean, man, for the budget play, Stadia makes no sense. For the core gamer play, Stadia makes no sense. Who is it made for? I don't know. Maybe only the people in the Google advert. And with that, that is it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. This was actually a lot more, just a lot of fun to do, really, for me. We sort of try to change up the angle a bit. I mean, I just feel like sometimes in our content, we're very focused on the facts and stuff, and that is the way to be. But there's sometimes where I think we could do a little bit more work just synthesizing the facts, and then using that as our starting point, and then just having a video like this that's just a bit more, I guess, like communicative, a bit more chilled out, a bit more of actually us, conversing about it. I think there's a bit more value in that. So I'd be interested to see, did you enjoy the experience of listening to or watching this video more? I definitely feel like, as the person behind the camera recording it, I felt a lot more invested while recording this video because of the way we've sort of decided to do this one from a format perspective. So let me know what you think about that. Sorry, a bit of a random ramble at the end. And with that, thank you very much. Let me know what your thoughts on these streaming services are down below. And with that, I will see you next time.